welcome my dear friends. Regarding of CPGET 2023 free online coaching. Today's our eminent resource person, Dr.P.Manjula Madam Garu, Assistant Professor, Department of Botany, Government Degree College for Women.
Rbvrr Women's College.
Madam? Madam?
Rbvrr.
Okay. So, Madam has huge experience. She has working since 18 years in prestigious institution in 20 cities. That is Raja Bahadur Venkat Ram Reddy Women's College Autonomous, Narayanguda, Hyderabad. Madam is going to explain about the plant anatomy. In earlier classes, Madam has clearly explained about the plant ecology and biodiversity. So, my dear friends, utilize this wonderful opportunity. So, we would like to invite today's resource person, Dr. P. Manjula Madam Garu. Please welcome, Madam. Share your screen and start your session, Madam. Please welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Madam, good evening.
Good evening. Okay, good evening, my dear students. So today's topic is, so in last class only we discussed about the types of meristematic tissues. Okay, so once again, so here the plant tissues, they are classified into two types, that is meristematic tissues and permanent tissues. So again, meristematic tissues based on the origin, position. So again, they are classified into different types. So today's class, we will discuss about the permanent tissues. So here some important points regarding this meristematic tissues is the term meristem was coined by Nageli. So in last previous year question, so the term meristem was coined by, they asked one time. So okay, 1 minute. Okay. Okay, so the term meristem was coined by
Madam, possible click on slideshow.
Nageli. The term meristem was coined by Nageli in 1858. Okay.
Madam,
So,
Madam, excuse me. If possible, click on slideshow.
1 minute. Okay, sir. Okay. Okay. So the term meristem was coined by Nageli. So meristem means in Greek, that is divided. So these are the unspecialized cells and they can undergo continuous state of division. So generally this is also, so they are living and have thin walled and vacuoles are few and small in size. And cell contains dense cytoplasm and conspicuous nucleus. Well organized nucleus is present and cells are spherical, oval or polygonal in shape. And they do not store reserve food materials and are in active state of metabolism. So what are the characteristics of, so they will also ask this type, meristematic cells have shows distinctly, that is large vacuoles or thick walls, both are prominent nucleus. So here the answer is prominent nucleus. The meristematic cells have prominent nucleus. So based on the origin, so here they are classified into promeristem, primary meristem and secondary meristem. So based on the position, if they are present in the apical regions, they are called as the apical meristem. So in between, so they are in lateral position, they are called as the lateral meristem, and in between, that is in the nodal regions, they are called as the intercalary meristem. So promeristem means, so from the embryo, first formation of promeristem will occur. So this promeristem under again different divided to primary meristem. And from this primary meristem, so primary tissues will be formed from this primary meristem. So promeristem, so early embryonic meristem from which other advanced meristems are derived. So they are called as a promeristem. So their function is to produce the cells of the primary meristems. So in plants, it occupies a small area at the tip of the stem and root. So generally these they are present in tips of the stem and root, and they are composed of initials. So a group of cells, so they undergo division. So they are called as the initials. So and continuous division is the characteristic of this initial. So and it divide further to form a primary meristem. So from the promeristem, here the formation of further primary meristem will occurs. So next one is a primary meristem. So they are derived from the promeristem and gives rise to the primary tissue system. And they, these cells divide and form the permanent tissues. So here again, that is here the primary meristem, that is from the protoderm, that is a formation of epidermis will occurs, and from the procambium, that is formation of vascular tissues, and from the ground meristem. So in between this region, that is in between the epidermis and vascular bundle. So remaining parts like cortex, endodermis, pericycle, and pith regions, they are formed from this ground meristem. So secondary meristem, so they are derived from the primary meristem, and permanent tissues that have the capacity of this secondary tissues, secondary meristem, they are derived from the primary meristem, and they may be permanent, they form the permanent tissues. But these secondary meristem, so during the secondary growth, they becomes active and undergoes division. So only by taking the signals are during the secondary growth only. So these secondary meristem becomes active and undergoes division. In other cases, so they are not in so they cannot divide. So form the meristematic tissues. So vascular cambium. So example for secondary meristem is the vascular cambium, which is responsible for the secondary thickening of the plant organs. So another example is cork cambium, so which produce a periderm or secondary dermal tissues. So secondary meristem, generally they are inactive when during the secondary growth only. So these secondary meristems are active and undergoes secondary division, secondary growth, like production of secondary xylem and secondary phloem. So vascular cambium, which is present in the vascular bundle, that is in between the xylem and phloem, and helps in the production of secondary xylem and secondary phloem. So whereas the cork cambium, it is present in the cortex region, and during the secondary growth, formation of, that is what you call cork, formation of cork outer layer. So it is takes place to this cork cambium. It mainly helps in the protection. So based on the position, apical, intercalary, and lateral. So apical meristem, they are present in the apical regions of the root and stem, and helps in primary growth, and mainly helps in the increase the plant length. So generally here in this region, so these apical meristems are present in the tip regions, and these shoot apical meristem, and here young leaves, formation of young leaves also, leaves also takes place through this apical meristem. So here lateral meristem, so they mainly helps in increase the width, and here in the nodal region, that is intercalary meristem, so they helps in the formation of axillary buds. So here root region, so here root tips, at the root tips, root apex region also, here meristems are present, so they helps in the formation of these roots. So here primary meristems, again based on their function, that is protoderm, from the protoderm epidermis, from the ground meristem, that is cortex, endodermis, pericycle, and medulla regions are formed from this ground region, ground meristem, and from the procambium, that is vascular bundle, that is xylem and phloem. So here protoderm, that is epidermis, whereas from the ground meristem, here they are generally, here the ground meristem, it may be made up of, it is constituted by this parenchyma, parenchyma, and sclerenchyma. So these are the permanent tissues. So apical meristem produce the primary meristems. They are protoderm, from the protoderm epidermis, and from the ground meristem cortex, endodermis, pericycle and medulla regions, and from the procambium formation of vascular bundles will occur. So the tissues they produce are called as the primary tissues. Next one is intercalary meristem. So they are present at the bases of the leaves, nodes and internodes, and helps in the longitudinal growth of the plants. So these are the nodal regions. So these intercalary meristem is present. So mainly helps in the increase the longitudinal growth. Lateral meristem. So this tissue lies on sides of the plant body. So like here. So lateral sides and gives the plants its width, that is width or girth, that is secondary growth. So during the secondary growth only these lateral meristems are active and helps in the secondary tissue formation of secondary tissues. So the vascular cambium and cork cambium are the lateral meristems. So they also comes under the secondary meristem. So example for secondary meristem and also the lateral meristems are vascular cambium and cork cambium. So secondary meristem means so they are inactive during the primary growth, but during the secondary growth only they becomes active and helps in the secondary growth. And they produce the secondary tissues that function primarily in support and also the conduction. So here shoot apical meristem. So here the lateral internodal region. So that is intercalary meristem at the nodal region and lateral meristem. So mainly helps in the increase the girth or width. So here root apical meristem. So apical regions of the roots. So they produce the root diameter. So here. So apical meristem. They are present at the tips of the stem and roots and function is growth, increase the length at the tips. Intercalary meristem, they are present in the tips and base of the stem and leaves are node, base of the node and internode, and helps in the increase the length between the nodes. Lateral meristem, sides of the stem and roots and helps in the increase the diameter, that is width. So after cells are produced by the meristems, so the cells assume the various shapes and sizes which related to their function, and they develop and mature. So after the cell division, so what happens? So they are in different shapes and sizes and they perform different functions. So some tissues, they consist of only one kind of cell. So they are called as a simple tissue. So if they produce only one kind of cells, so they are called as a simple tissues, and whereas others may have the two or several kinds of cells known as the complex tissues. So here first one is simple tissues. So simple tissues, they are made up of only one type of cells. They are called as a simple tissues. So here again simple tissues are again classified into three types, that is parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. So first one is the parenchyma. So they are the most abundant of cell types in all plants. So generally all parts of the plant, generally they are made up of parenchyma. So they are less spherical, cubical or elongated in shape. So they are in different shapes and they have very large vacuoles and are frequently found in all roots, stems, leaves and fruits. So generally all parts, then generally they are made up of the parenchyma cells. And they have the thin primary cell wall. So here the cell wall of the parenchyma, it is also thin walled and serve as a space filler, and they mainly it is the structural component of the organs or tissues. So here the main characters are they are present in they are abundant in all types of cells, and they are less spherical, cubical or elongated in shape, and they have large vacuoles and found in roots, leaves, stems and fruits. So along with this here, and they also occur in the cortex region, pith region, pericycle of the stem and roots, mesophyll of leaves and pulp of the fruits and endosperm of the seed. So generally along with these regions, so they are also present in the pulp of the fruit, endosperm of the seeds, and mesophyll leaves, etc. So they are also present in the complex tissues like xylem and phloem. So the parenchyma cells, they are present in the xylem. They are called as xylem parenchyma and phloem parenchyma. So they are also associated with xylem and phloem. Generally, these parenchyma cells, they are the living cells. So generally, parenchyma cells, they are called as the living cells, and they are engaged in different functions. That is, they mainly help in the photosynthesis, and they also stores food and water in the leaves, stems, seeds, and fruits. And they also controls plants metabolism like photosynthesis, respiration, and protein synthesis. So they also play a vital role in wound healing and also the regeneration of the plant. So the parenchyma cells mainly plays important role. So they helps in the photosynthesis. If the parenchyma cells which contain the chloroplast, they are called as the chlorenchyma. So chlorenchyma cells mainly helps in the photosynthesis. Generally, these are found in the leaf mesophyll and outer cortex of the young stems. This chlorenchyma. Chlorenchyma means the parenchyma plus chloroplast. They constitute the chlorenchyma and helps in the photosynthesis. So based on the functions, so again, parenchyma cells are classified into parenchyma cells. They are named as different types. So chlorenchyma means they provide support to plants and also helps in the photosynthesis mainly. They perform the photosynthesis. So provide support to the plants and also stores food. And in some situations, so it contains chlorophyll and performs a photosynthesis. So another one is parenchyma. So it gives, so it stores gases in the inside, and they gives buoyancy to the plants to help them float. So another one is storage parenchyma. So here only, so if the parenchyma cells, they store the food materials or sugars or amides or proteins, so in the form of solid or fluid bodies. So they are called as the storage parenchyma. That is, they may store starch, proteins, soils, fatty acids, etc. So they are called as the storage parenchyma. So generally, storage parenchyma, it is seen in the rye endosperm. So based on the function, so these parenchyma cells, if the parenchyma cells, they helps in the photosynthesis, they are called as the chlorenchyma. And parenchyma, they mainly helps in the buoyancy. So generally, parenchyma cells, they are seen in the hydrophytes. So storage parenchyma, generally they are seen in the endosperm of the seeds, that is rye, etc. So they helps in the storage of food materials. So next one is the chlorenchyma. So this is the second, permanent tissues. So second one is the chlorenchyma. So from Greek, chola means glue. So they are mainly attached. They are attached. So they are the live during the cell maturity. So they are elongated and they have a thicker and more uneven wall than the parenchyma cells. So these are also living cells and they are elongated and they have a thicker and more uneven. So generally in chlorenchyma, their cell wall is evenly thickened, but here uneven thickenings are seen in the chlorenchyma. So they found in leaf blades and below the stalks, below the epidermis. So in others, they provide support for both parenchyma and chlorenchyma cells. So they must be turgid. So generally these chlorenchyma mainly helps in the mechanical support. So generally these are present in stem, found in stems, leaves, floral parts, and also the fruits. So it is these are the living cells, living tissue, and they mainly tensile strength. So they can survive during the forcible winds also. They can also generally plants, they cannot break during the high pressure winds. So due to presence of this chlorenchyma, so they give tensile strength. So collenchyma generally they are found beneath the epidermis. So they are thicker and more uneven. So uneven thickenings are seen in this collenchyma. And so the main function of the collenchyma cells is to provide the flexibility to the plant organs. So again here collenchyma cells again based on their thickenings. So they are classified into different types: lamellar type, lacunar, angular. So generally these collenchyma cells they are made up generally they are made up of what you call cellulose. Cell wall is made up of cellulose, pectin and hemicellulose. So due to the presence of this pectin, which gives the cell walls have the high water content. So generally these cell walls, they are made up of cellulose, pectin and hemicellulose here. So due to these thickenings, so based on the thickenings, so they are differentiated into different types. Lamellar collenchyma. So lamellar collenchyma means, so their thickenings are restricted only to the tangential walls. Lacunar means only in between the intercellular space only. If the thickenings are present at the intercellular spaces, they are called as the lacunar. Next one is angular collenchyma means only they are present in the angles. Cell wall is deposited only in the angles or corners of the cell. So they are called as the angular. So collenchyma three types based on the deposition. So in the collenchyma, that is uneven thickenings are seen like this. So uneven thickenings are seen. So based on the thickenings, so lamellar means only the tangential walls, lacunar means only in the intercellular spaces, and another one is angular, only in the corners. The thickenings are present only in the corners. So main function is flexibility and elasticity. So it also helps in the, and generally these collenchyma which is present at the margins of the leaf lamina and prevent the tearing of the leaf due to wind currents. So due to high winds also they cannot break or they cannot separate it due to presence of these collenchyma, which gives flexibility. So sometimes collenchyma also contains chloroplast and they also helps in the photosynthesis. So this is about the collenchyma. So next one is sclerenchyma. So collenchyma, it is also a living cell. So sclerenchyma, so these are the dead cells. So here this from the Greek word, that is sclerus means hard. So sclerenchyma tissues have the cells with the thick, tough secondary walls and normally impregnated with the lignin. So generally they are made up of lignin. So due to presence of these lignin, so these sclerenchyma cells are hard and they are generally dead cells. So lignin makes them flexible as well as strong. So most are dead at maturity. So generally they are during the young. So during formation they are living cells only, but at maturity, so the protoplast will be degenerated and they becomes dead cells. So they vary in shape and but are often cubical, mainly cubical, or they are in different shapes and they provide the rigid structure and protection. The main function is this gives a rigid shape and also helps in the protection, and also these sclerenchyma cells also helps in the mechanical support. So of these three, that is parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma, so these sclerenchyma cells only dead cells, and they provide structural strength in regions that have stopped growing in length and no longer need to be flexible in that region. So they gives structural strength. So here again these sclerenchyma, here also two main kinds, that is fibers and sclerites. So generally sclerenchyma, they are composed of two types of cells, fibers and sclerites. So fibers are, these are the elongated with secondary walls and impregnated with lignin, and they are usually in groups, and this enables stem to move in wind without snapping. So sclerites vary in shape but are often cubical or spherical, and they make the structures rock hard and inflexible. So here fibers, they are elongated cells with, here they also shows tapering ends. And generally these are seen in vascular tissues and also occurs in the ground tissue. So generally fibers, what you call xylem fibers and phloem fibers. So generally they are made up of these fibers only. So they are elongated and tapering. So they have the great tensile strength is seen in these fibers, whereas in sclerates that is inflexible. They do not show the tensile strength. So these are the characteristics of parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. So parenchyma, they are spherical, thin-walled, living and metabolizing tissues. So collenchyma, they are also elongated cells with unevenly thickened cell walls, and they also live at maturity. Whereas sclerenchyma with primary and secondary cell walls and dead at functional maturity. So location, generally they are present throughout the plant. Collenchyma, generally they are present beneath the epidermis in young stems and in leaf veins. Sclerenchyma, generally they are fibers in wood and bark, leaves and stem, and sclerates in the fruits and seeds. The functions of the parenchyma are mainly photosynthesis, storage and regeneration, and also respiration. And collenchyma helps in flexible support system. Here it gives mechanical support. So these are the functions of permanent tissues. So next one is the complex tissues. So complex tissues means a tissue that is made up of several cell types, such as the mixture of parenchyma, collenchyma, or other water conducting cells. So generally simple tissues, example for simple permanent tissues are parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Whereas the example for here complex permanent tissues are xylem and phloem. So these simple tissues can modify into more specialized cells for the transport, support, and also the protection. So the complex tissues, they are organized into 3 functional units known as the tissue system, and they are continuous throughout the plant. So the 3 tissue systems in vascular plants are dermal tissue system, vascular tissue system, and ground tissue system. So all of which originate from the meristematic cells only. So all these tissue systems, they are developed from meristematic cells only. So already we discussed about this dermal tissue system. So here, so first one is the dermal tissue system. So dermal means dermal in Greek, that is derma means skin. So the dermal tissue system is the outer protective covering of the plant. So the dermal tissue system begins as a parenchyma cells, and which are then modified to form the various types of cells, and that protect the plant from the physical damage and also the desiccation. So generally the dermal tissue system means which constitute the epidermis, stomata, and epidermal hairs. They are generally dermal tissue system. They are comprised of this epidermis, stomata, and also the epidermal hairs. So these tissue systems, they are classified into 3 types by the SAC, S-A-C-H, SAC classified here 3 tissue systems into 3 types, that is dermal tissue system, ground tissue system, and vascular tissue system. So the dermal tissue begins as a parenchyma cell, and which are then modified to form the various types of cells, and that protect the plant from the physical damage and also the desiccation. So generally in plants, the dermal tissue, that is epidermis, it is made up of only 1 layer with cells closely arranged. So it is called as the epidermis. So generally dermal means outer layer, it is epidermis. So in plants that have more than 1 growing season, so the epidermis of the stem and roots is replaced by the protective tissue known as the periderm. So the periderm consists of mainly of non-living cork cells, and that protect the plants from the predators and also the water loss. So the main function of this dermal tissue system is protection to the inner organs, inner cells. So the dermal tissue can become more modified through the production of hair-like extensions called as the trichomes. So generally on the outer side of this epidermis, so trichomes are present, hair-like extensions. So the plants may use trichomes. They also helps in the protection from the enemies. So plants may use trichomes in order to inhibit herbivore attack through the physical or chemical means. So they sometimes due to hard spine-like structure, so they helps, and also the chemicals, that is the chemicals which are secreted by these trichomes, they also helps in the to inhibit from the herbivores. So in specialized, this stinging hairs, so they are seen in Utrica. So species, they deliver inflammatory chemicals such as the histamine. So due to which, so inflammation when we touch these stinging hairs. So here, due to the chemicals which are secreted by these stinging hairs, so due to which here the inflammation of the skin may occur due to presence of these histamines. So these are the protective purchase which are produced by these epidermal tissue system. So on the top of the epidermis, so waxy cuticle is made of fatty substances called as a cutin. So generally epidermis which is thickened with the cuticle. So the function of this layer is to prevent the water loss due to presence of these cuticle. So it mainly helps in to prevent the water loss. So the epidermis also has two highly specialized cells that contain the chloroplast known as the guard cells. So in the epidermal region only stomata are present. So they contain small aperture and it is covered with the guard cells. So the guard cells formed a tiny hole on the leaves known as the stomata. So the stoma allows gases. So singular form is stomata and plural is stoma. And they also allow gases to diffuse in and out. That is, the main function of these stomata is gases exchange. So next one is, so this is about the ground epidermal tissue system. So next one is the vascular tissue system. Okay, so vascular tissue system, it is continuous system of tissue that contains, the main function of this vascular tissue system is they mainly helps in the conduction of water, minerals and food materials. So generally this vascular tissue system, it is seen in the higher plant, that is vascular plants. So the plants with well developed conductive system, so generally they are called as vascular plants. They are also known as the tracheophytes. So the main function of the vascular tissues is conduction. So they conduct water, minerals and food materials. So additional function is they also provide mechanical support due to presence of these xylem fibers and phloem fibers. So vascular tissue, it is composed of two types of tissues, that is xylem and phloem. So sap, it is the name which is given to the contents which are transported by the xylem and phloem. It is called as the sap. That is the content, it is called a transported, that is water, minerals and food materials. So they are transport, it is called as a sap. So here, so the main function of the xylem is, that is conduction of water and minerals from the roots to the leaves, upper parts. Okay, and here the phloem, the main function of the phloem is here the conduction of minerals from the upper part to roots, that is from the leaves to roots. So here the photosynthesis will occur. So here the production of carbohydrates. So these are transported to the roots through phloem, and from the here the roots absorbs water and minerals and they are transported to the leaves and all other parts through this xylem. So xylem is one of the two types of transport tissues in vascular plants. So the main function is conduction of water and minerals from the roots to the rest of the plant's body. So additional function is provide the mechanical support. So here the xylem, again it contains, so it is made up of different types of cells. So that is tracheids, vessels, xylem fibers and xylem parenchyma. So of these, only xylem parenchyma is the living one, and all others are dead cells. Tracheids, vessels, and xylem fibers, they are the dead cells. Only the xylem parenchyma, it is the living cell. So it may, this question is also asked in the question exam. That is living cells. So that is the xylem parenchyma. So first one is the tracheids. So tracheids are the long cells with the tapered ends, and the length, average length is 5 to 6 millimeter, and they are the fundamental cell type in the xylem. So they are non-living at maturity. So these are the non-living. Tracheids are the non-living cells, and mature cells are empty without protoplast. If the protoplast is present, so then only the all physiological activities will occur. So here they are degenerated at maturity. So hence they are the non-living cells. So contains secondary cell wall, and the secondary cell wall is highly lignified. So it is thickened with the lignin. So the major portion of the cell wall of the tracheids are perforated. That is, they contain pits. So the torus of the pit act as a walls. So this one is the tracheids. So here pits are present. So through this, transport of materials will, water and minerals will take place through these pits. So next one is the vessels. They are also known as the trachea. So the diameter is up to 100 micrometers, and they are the components of vessels. Generally, the components of the vessel, they are called as a vessel element. So each one is called as a vessel member or vessel element. So vessel elements are wider, shorter, and less tapered than the tracheids. So this is a one element, vessel. So vessel elements are tube-like cells, and these cells are also non-living at the maturity. So cells are devoid of protoplast at maturity. Here also they do not contain the protoplast. So cells are arranged as a series in end-to-end fashion, and cells are arranged parallel to the long axis of the organ. So vessel has, here also vessels has a pits, numerous pits present in the lateral walls for communication. Through this, the exchange of the material will, transport of the material will takes place. So and has opening in each vessel end wall, it is called as a perforation plate. So this one, it is called as a perforation plate. On this, these pits are present. So next one is the xylem fibers. So xylary fibers. So xylem fibers are thread-like cells, and that provide support to the tissues as well as the plants. So the cells contain lignified. Here also the xylem fibers, they are also made up of lignin, and these are also the dead cells, and no protoplast at the maturity. So the main function is they gives mechanical support. So next one is the xylem parenchyma. So only living cells of the xylem is the xylem parenchyma, and the cell has cytoplasm and prominent nucleus. And here the cell wall is thin and impregnated with the cellulose. Here it is made up of cellulose. So all other elements, they are made up of lignin, but except xylem, it is made up of cellulose. So parenchyma stores here, xylem parenchyma, which stores starch, oil, and other ergostic substances. So this is the structure of the xylem. So it contains tracheids, vessels, xylem parenchyma, and xylem fibers. So next one is the phloem. So phloem is, it is the one of the two types of transport tissues in the vascular plants. That is, the main function of the phloem is conduction of food and organic nutrients from the leaves to the rest of the plant body. So here xylem em chestundi, so they transport water and minerals from the root system to the all other parts, whereas the phloem, it mainly helps in the conduction of food and organic nutrients from the leaves. So where the food materials are synthesized in the leaf. So from this, they are transported to the all other parts of the plant. So and composed of several types of cells. Here, so here also primary phloem and secondary phloem. Based on the development, there are two types of phloem, primary phloem and secondary phloem. So primary phloem is derived from the procambium during the primary growth, and secondary phloem is derived from the vascular cambium during the secondary growth. So there also In the xylem also, primary xylem and secondary xylem. So primary xylem, which is derived from the procambium, it is called as a primary xylem, and they helps in primary growth. Whereas the secondary xylem, which is derived from the vascular cambium. So from the vascular cambium, secondary xylem and secondary phloem is produced, and they helps in the secondary growth. So here also the phloem, it is composed of several elements like sieve tube elements, companion cells, phloem parenchyma and phloem fibers. So of these, only phloem fibers are dead cells and all others are living cells. So sieve tube. So here the sieve tube elements, these are the living cells in the phloem and consist of protoplasm, and they have no lignified secondary cell walls, and at maturity it lacks nucleus. So here the sieve elements, again two types, sieve tubes and sieve plates. So sieve tube means these are the longitudinal series of cells with each cell referred as a sieve tube element. So and the main only function is conduction of organic nutrients from the leaves to the other parts of the plant. Sieve plate, that is, they contain the pores that allow materials to pass from cell to cell without crossing the plasma membrane and cell walls. Next one is the companion cells. These are the specialized parenchyma cells that helps in the transport of food and nutrients in the plant body, and at maturity it contains nucleus. So therefore it can supply proteins for the sieve tube members, and companion cells are narrow than the sieve tube elements. So these are the sieve tube elements and these are the companion cells. So generally companion cells are attached with these sieve elements only. So companions, they are connected to the sieve tubes by the plasma desmata. Next one is the phloem parenchyma. So these are also thin walled cells, living cells, and primarily help in store the starch. Next one is the phloem fibers. So phloem fibers are flexible, long cells and that provide support for the plant. So in xylem, only xylem parenchyma is the living cells and all others are the dead cells. Whereas in the phloem, only phloem fibers are the dead cells and remaining are the living cells. So okay, so next one is the ground tissue system. So it is also known as a fundamental tissue system, and it consists of all the tissues other than the vascular bundles and dermal tissue system. So they are usually formed between the dermal and vascular tissues. They are known as a cortex. So ground tissue can also appear on the inside of the vascular tissues. That is, it is called as a pith or medulla. So here the ground tissue. So here it is made up of parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. So parenchyma, they are thin walled and stores help main function storage and photosynthesis. So here the collenchyma cells, they are uneven thickenings and flexible, whereas the sclerenchyma thick cell wall and strength and support. So these are the so generally ground tissues, they are made up of parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. So here the dermal tissue system, type of cells are flat living parenchyma cells, that is in the epidermal cells in non-woody parts, and flat dead parenchyma, that is cork cells in the woody parts. So location of these dermal tissues are, it is the outermost layer of the cells, and the main function is absorption and protection. So here the functions of roots is absorption and protection, where the functions in the stem is gases exchange and protection, and in the leaves gases exchange and also the protection. So ground tissue, that is mostly parenchyma and usually with some collenchyma and fewer sclerenchyma. So generally ground tissue, it is mainly mostly it is made up of parenchyma cells only. So location, generally they are present, dermal tissue system, it is present between the dermal and vascular in non-woody plant parts. So the main function is support and storage, ground tissue. And so in all parts, that is storage and support, whereas in the leaves, this ground tissue mainly helps in photosynthesis. So vascular tissue system, so these are the elongated cells, are dead xylem and living phloem, and also parenchyma and sclerenchyma fibers. So here the type of cells are, they are elongated cells and dead cells in xylem. Only xylem parenchyma is a living, and here the living phloem and fibers only dead cells here. So here generally location, that is tubes and throughout the plant, and the main function is transport and support in all parts, that is in the roots, stem and leaves. So the main function is transport and support. So I will stop here and we will continue in next class. We will discuss some questions, practice bits in the next class. Sir.
Madam, really, thank you very much. You done a wonderful job today. Most probably all the tissues you have clearly explained: ground tissue, epidermal tissue, and even though the vascular tissue. Okay, so along with this, all the tissues, the permanent tissues, and also the meristematic tissue, you are clearly explained, madam. Really, thank you very much, madam. Your class is excellent. Our participants are highly benefited from your class, madam. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Right.
Okay.